All righty. So, welcome to the Mama Sessions free kickoff call. It's June 1st and beginning of summer, really. Beginning of June. What a great way to kick off the summer. And this is like my favorite time of year. I just love summer and playing and being outside and hanging with my kids and I'm just really grateful that you guys are here, whether you're here now or in the future. It's exciting to me to have playmates that would like to be part of this conversation. It's something that to me, this really, so it's like, so what is this conversation, right? To me, it actually really is about having more ease with parenting and just in your life in general. I did invite people to come who are not parents or who are dads and just who would like to have more ease in their world. And it's one of those things that I feel like I'm realizing more and more as I play with access consciousness and really look at this question of what do I know that I've never allowed myself to know. That it's there's something that I think I've always known about ease that I never saw in the world, and it never, and as a result, I was always a little bit confused, or it just sort of never made sense to me that people didn't choose ease as one of the primary choices in their lives. And actually, speaking of, I'm going to lock the door so that my kids don't run in here screaming. Because I like ease. They've been known to do that. So yeah, I just have, I just think back to being a kid and like seeing my parents or my mom, just really working super hard. And my brother and I were really close together in age. And so, two babies within 15 months of each other. And how hard it was, like how much of a struggle it was, and how that sort of became my reality when I became a mom. When I got pregnant with my first son, pretty much right away, my body started just really struggling. It wasn't that fun for me. It was, I didn't like all the changes, of course, but I didn't feel good, and I wasn't in a super supportive marriage. And so there was somewhere in my world that this knowing of like looking around the world as a child and going, there's something that I know about ease, and why isn't anybody choosing it? To then, as soon as I became a mom, going like, okay, well, apparently this parenting thing has to be hard. And so I guess I'll do that so I can, sort of get it right. And really what I saw was that, well, there's so many different things I want to say. As I got more and more into motherhood, into the whole parenting thing, there were just so many conversations that I wanted to be having that really didn't seem like they were allowed. It was like, and I live in Boulder, Colorado, which is a very very PC town, let's just say. It's actually a place where there's quite a lot of judgment around parenting and children, in terms of getting it right, like giving your kids all the organic food and not giving them sugar and not letting them do this and not giving them any screen time. And I have kids at my house all the time, friends of my kids, that are like, I don't eat GMO food, or, I'm gluten, dairy, and everything free. Um, and it's a very common thing in where I live. And so, um, my mom and I actually were laughing last night at, my parents were at a soccer game of my son's one time, and this crazy, outrageous, really fun woman was there who had just moved with her family from New York, and it was her turn to bring snacks for the halftime, whatever. And she brought like Hostess cupcakes or something like that. And everybody was absolutely mortified. Like, you do not do that in Boulder, Colorado. You don't show up at the soccer game with any kind of cupcakes, right? Like, it's like you bring carrots and celery, And so this is the community that I have lived in. And I felt so strangled by it. And for the longest time, I really just tried to get it all right. It was like, okay, well then my kids aren't going to have sugar, and they're not going to have this, and they're not going to have that. And we're going to try gluten-free, and, blah, 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 blah. And it just was so stifling to my joy and my ease. And there was this like thing inside of me that was like, there's something that I know here, and damn it, like, why can't I talk about it? Why can't I have this conversation with people around, hey, like, what's going to actually work for you as a mom, instead of how can you get it right? Because that's, as we know, as a lot of us know, that's not actually really a question. And so the judgments that exist in this world around parenting are, there are so many of them. They're insidious. They're, and not to make any of us at the effect of them, but they're very, very woven into the fabric of this reality and our culture. And so to look at the conversation of, hey, what actually really works for you as a parent, what works for you as a mom, what are going to be some choices that you can make that bring you joy. It's not actually a very popular conversation. And even with this call, like, there were some groups that I posted invitations in on Facebook that, where people, like, my post got deleted, and like, it was like, no, that's not a conversation we're willing to be having here. We actually, this group is around the conversation of how hard it is to be a mom. And it just sort of, when that shows up in my life, I'm so grateful, because I just get more into this, like, all right, watch out, world. You piss me off, and like, I create even more. So so what would it be like if we could really choose joy and ease and lightness? And what if you could choose for you as a parent? And what if that didn't mean that you were being a bad parent, or you were, not being attentive to your kids, but you actually got to be part of the equation? And, so the reason I created the Mama Sessions, those of you who don't know what it is, it was just a fun creation. I actually thought it would be really fun to be, to have like a group where I could sort of have this conversation very alive in my world over the summer. This is the first summer for me that I've actually chosen to not really have childcare for my kids. And we're traveling a lot, and I'm doing it really different than I have before. And I know that feeling of getting to, school starts in September, and you're like, like, and it's sort of like, where the hell did I go for the past 3 months, And it's a different rhythm, even if your kids do have childcare or camps or whatever, it's a different rhythm for most people in the summer, where there's a lot more going on, and there's more things to juggle, and just, it's that time where we're like, woohoo, let's do everything, and when that can be very fun. And then when we sort of get lost in the equation or in the conversation, then it really, it can sort of wear on you. And really, for me, what I would just love to create more of in the world is just more creation, like more of everybody who would like to, creating more. And when you're stressed, when you're tired, when you feel like you have no space, that's not actually something that it sort of, erodes your creative and generative space. And so there's a very pragmatic piece to this conversation for me, and that is really about setting up my life in such a way that I can sort of look ahead and go, hey, okay, like for me, it's like, I've got my kids for a lot of the summer. I don't have childcare. We're traveling and there's all these things going on. So now what's required, right? What's required for me to carve out space, to make sure that I have space to, what points of view do I need to get over in regards to parenting? I mean, sometimes just letting my kids have some screen time is really helpful for me. And they appreciate the downtime. And so what actually what are the pragmatic ways that I can set up my life, knowing that this is, it's summertime and it's a different time. And so for me, part of that was, hey, like, let's have a little group of moms and dads, if you want to come and play too, where we can actually really kind of have each other's backs and have our own backs and have this conversation of what would it actually be like to create more, as in your life, and, one of the pieces that is a big one for me with this is this idea of, it used to be in the foundation and level 1 class in Access Consciousness, that a lot of us are what we call women warriors to change the world. And, that I know there are some dads that are coming on this call, and I adore you guys. I'm so grateful. And even some people that aren't parents. I mean, I just was sort of like, hey, if you want to have more ease, come and play. 'Cause I know this conversation is actually quite relevant to everybody, really. If you have a life, it's like, how do you want to set up your life so that you can create more? So where was I going? Oh, women warriors to change the world. So it's this acknowledgement that, for women and just people who are lit up to create more in the world, there is this creative and generative drive that we have, to change things, to just to make a better world, to be the invitation for a different possibility on the planet. And women have a big piece in that. I mean, even the Dalai Lama said, Western women are going to change the world. And so there's this acknowledgement of like, what sort of drives us, right? That, is also not part of the conversation of motherhood in this reality. And when I heard that, it changed so much in my world. Like, just that, hey, like, a lot of women, really do actually not want to be barefoot and pregnant, or, a lot of women actually it doesn't actually really work for them, or, to like be home with the kids all the time. Because there's this whole other universe that's part of their world that is like not going to go away. Like, it's like this, dun, da, 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 right? Women warriors to change the world. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, yes. You mean I'm not wrong that I don't want to stay home with my kids all the time, even when they're little tiny babies? I remember my youngest one was, he was born a month early. And when he was 2 weeks old, my husband at the time and I went out to dinner and we had a very trusty babysitter at the time. And, we were like, we're just going down the street to get some dinner, and left her with him and my older son. And she was so funny. We came up, she's like, that was just so weird. Like, he wasn't even supposed to be out of the womb yet, and I'm babysitting for him, but that was kind of how it's like, it's been this thing of like, I have to have space. I have to have me space and time. So I love people messaging me right now going, can I join the call? Jenny, I don't know, Susan Zumwalt, I don't know if you're friends with her, but she's asking for the info. So maybe if you can find her.
What's her name again? Sorry, I missed that.
Susan Zumwalt. If you can't find her, we'll get her the recording. So where was I going with that? So yeah, I think just really just to say that, how much wrongness have you created in your world around what actually works for you, what's actually true for you, how you roll as a mom, and like how much have you made that actually wrong, that you can't actually do it the way that everybody says that you're supposed to do it. So, and everything that is and everything that brings up times a godzillion, will you destroy and uncreate it? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, puck, pod, shorts, boys, beyonds. And if you don't know what I just said, I didn't even ask how many of you are familiar with access consciousness, but that's the access consciousness clearing statement. And it's basically like a magic wand that just deletes unconscious stuff that stops you. You don't really have to know what it is. If you want to know what it is, you can go to theclearingstatement.com, but it works. It's one of the cool, crazy, fun ways that this tool actually, or that this body of work actually is just so quick with how much we can change. Okay, so if you are a woman warrior to change the world, or even just, like maybe you don't identify with that, but you're just, would like to have more space and ease in your world, what would actually be required in your life? Like if you look at your summer, and of course we can make this conversation, we can sort of put it in the context of summer. And it's like, my intention is like, what is even beyond, like, how could you create a space for you and an honoring of you, really? That's a huge part of what this is about, that goes way beyond, September and into the rest of your life. And so what's required? Like, what truly would be fun for you? What would be fun for you as a parent to have available in your life, to set up your life in such a way that your joy is actually paramount, right? Because if you're happy, if you're really joyful and lit up about your life and what you're creating, your family will be so much better for it. No matter how that looks on the outside, and another part of this conversation is really the willingness to be judged for making choices that in this reality seem to be quite, they go very much against the judgments of what's required to be a good parent a lot of times. Choosing for you, choosing joy, setting up your life in a way that works. It's not, as we've been talking about, it's not really part of the deal. Nobody asks you that, hey buddy. So what actually is going to work for you? And I'm not even sure. I haven't even looked at who all is here, but does anybody have, there's lots of different places we can go with this. So does anybody have questions right now, or something that you really wanted to get out of this conversation today? Something that you're aware of, anything like that?
Hello.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
So, Trace is saying hi with his pizza.
Hi, buddy.
So what's going on for us this summer is we're actually moving. And so we're just moving towns and to the place where my husband grew up, and it's going to be a real different dynamic with the kids, in a sense of where we are right now. I kind of have things figured out, like what's going to work and what works for me to get my stuff done. They have their space and whatever. And so the dynamic is going to change because, well, Trace and Helena will now have to share a bedroom, and currently they have separate rooms, and I'm not really sure how that's going to go. I think we'll just take it as it comes. We'll be living in the same yard as their cousins. They're like a half a mile away, but I don't know. But it's going to be closer, and it's going to be a little bit different, and they're going to be playing more. And so there's a lot of unknowns, which I'm cool with, but I just wonder how I'll be able to create even more ease than I have right now. And I use the daycare in town, which is fantastic for the kids to go to when I need extra time, and it's going to be a little further away. Like right now it's only 10 minutes for me to drive, but when we move it's going to be about 40 minutes. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just figuring out new stuff. So that's what I was looking at this, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and this is actually, always coming to question, right? Questions are a way to really, especially when you're in a new situation and you're like, really have no idea. I mean, we really don't ever have an idea of how something's going to go anyway, but you've got so many variables of, new home, new living situation, new community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be asking, what would it take for this to turn out even more amazing than I can imagine? And just even asking, like, what's required? Like, what is required in order to have more ease? What is required in order to have more space? What fun people can we connect with to, create even more, a greater sense of ease? And then, there's all the, like, sort of like, are there play dates you can set up with the cousins, or maybe kids go back and forth, or maybe there's an area of the yard that is where they can meet up and, you can create, little playthings, or, I do that a lot with my kids, of just sort of like creating like spaces or activities, or like, hey, like the other day, I just really wanted them to be playing outside more, and like, let's go get some lacrosse sticks, so we just got it, like, really simple little new toy that, they were occupying themselves with for a few days. And so things like that, like, I wonder what you could add, what you could create that would allow this to be even greater than you can imagine. Yeah. And even, like in their room, like sharing a room. Okay, so how can we set this up? Like, what are the things? Because this is one of the pieces around, this is one of the real pragmatic pieces around setting up your life in a way that works for you, is actually to really sort of look at the future, like look at what is. A lot of times we don't want to see what is, because we love fantasy quite a bit. And that's an easy one to do with your kids, where you're like, oh, they'll be great and they can do this and la la la, and I know for me, like, I don't know if this is true for you, Kathleen, but my boys fight quite a bit. And so I'm always sort of like, okay, cool. So what's true here about this situation? And this is really one of what's woven through this whole conversation is the 5 elements of intimacy with you and with your life. Like, okay, trust is one of the elements of intimacy, trusting that, kind of how they roll, not as a way of pigeonholing them into like, this is, like, this is how it's going to be, like, as a conclusion. But like, okay, so for me, it's like, my boys are really, really, really active. They fight. They're very physical, so I know that going in. And if I was going to have them share a room or do something, it would be like, all right, so if that's the case, like, what do I need to be aware of here? That I haven't been willing to be aware of before. And how can I set this up in such a way that addresses that? So maybe they each need to have a little nook in their room, or, whatever. Because even your physical space is a huge piece of what creates ease. That is a big piece. If you live in a chaotic physical space, or it doesn't support the flow of your life, it creates more challenges for you, especially when you're running a household and you have a family. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you. And I totally get the space thing. I need to find a balance with the chaos. I mean, I love organization. I'm totally like you. I get it when you talk about your OCD and I'm so sometimes I find myself cleaning up the house like 3 or 4 times a day because I want it to be like, so
Yeah.
the nice thing about our new house is the basement that we're moving into is it has windows and it's very much like upstairs.
Oh, cool.
So all the kids' toys are going down there.
Awesome.
So that'll be their own space to look after. And right now it's actually a part of the living area. So it makes it a little bit harder. So that I'm really looking forward to that.
That's cool. Yeah. And so that's so even that, it's like, so you set up your space, and then what information do your kids need to have about the new space? So looking at like, okay, so, hey guys, like, we're in a new house now, and this is the deal. Like, this is going to be your space. And even like you may have seen this, Kathleen, I made, a video, but I know you know me, so I've talked about being OCD more than once. But I made a video the other day about my kids were clean. They were like super organizing. And it was like, it blew me away actually, because I was just like, oh my God, like these boys have never done this. And they wouldn't even talk to me. Like they were like, don't bother us. Like we are in the middle of a major project here. And that was like, 11 years in the making. So, but one of the things, like I am always giving them information. So one of the things was, hey guys, like, and I just said, because we're renting our house out this summer because we're gone almost for like most of the next 2 months. And so I told them that, like I said, hey, I gave them information. I just said, hey, we're renting the house. Like the house needs to be really clean for people that rent it. And this is going to be a good deal for us. And so everything in the house is going to be clean in the next 3 days. And this is how it's going to go. And you need to do this. And it was just like this, like I enlisted them in that, and let them know, like, just, how it was going to go. And it was so fun. My friend Hannah, she messaged me and she said, I love your video. I'm totally OCD too. She has 3 kids. She lives in Sweden. And she said, I've done this. I thought this was brilliant. She said, I've done this game with my kids where, what was it? She went through the house and she put everything in its place, right? Everything has a place. And even, a side note, like creating your space where you're like, this bin is for this, and this is for this, and this is where this goes, and showing your kids so they know. And she said, and we created this game where we went, okay, so she took her whole family, including her husband, and she said, all right, she gave them a tour, and she said, this is where everything goes. Now we're going to have teams. Okay. And it was she was a team, her husband was a team, and then the kids were together a team. And she said, we're going to see if I can remember the details. It was something about points, and the team, if you leave stuff around, like your stuff, the stuff that belongs to you, then that team gets a point. And the team with the less points at the end of every week got to, I think it was like decide on whatever activity they did that Sunday or something. you can make it whatever works for you. And so the team had to kind of have each other's back with, hey, dude, your shirt's on the floor over here. You might want to pick it up. So just fun things like that, like little challenges that you can give your kids, or, but including in that the information of what you require, because that's something that is really, it's not a part of our world at all to, in any type of a relationship, to let people know what you require. And, certainly if you don't do that with your partner or your friends or, other adults in your life, you may not be very likely to do that with your kids either. And what if that was actually what if you count? What if you really do count, and what you desire and what you require is absolutely okay to ask for from anybody, including yourself, including your kids. I'm always asking my kids to contribute to me, and kind of demanding in a way that they do. It's like, hey, just because I'm the mom doesn't mean I'm in charge of this whole thing. This is our house. This is our family. You guys got to show up. And I'll say things to them like, with my boys are really into Nerf guns right now. So there are Nerf bullets everywhere. It used to be Legos, no more Legos. Now it's Nerf bullets. And so I've just started, I'm so tired of cleaning up the Nerf. We have a little container for the bullets, and it's like that we always pick them up and put them back in the container. I'm kind of done with it. And so I just said to them the other day, hey guys, if I find these bullets, they'll go in the trash. And if you need more bullets, you're going to need to come up with the money to buy them. That's just how it's going to go. I'm not going to be responsible for your Nerf bullets, and they're like, oh, so it makes them responsible for, seeing the future of what they're creating, even by just not picking up their stuff. So yeah. So what else? What other questions do you guys have?
Heather.
Yes.
Did you just admit to living in fantasy quite a bit?
Sorry?
Did you just admit to living in fantasy quite a bit?
Did I just admit to living in fantasy?
Yes.
No.
No.
Sorry, what are you asking?
Okay. Well, I thought that's what you said. But anyways, I've been working with this girl, and I noticed that my kids did it too. They tried to, I guess what they were doing was implanting guilt. And my daughter, she's grown and has kids of her own, and she still does this. And I have this lady that I've been working with, and I won't say her name, but her son has convinced her that she abused him as a child. And then she asked, well, why would he lie? And I said, because he owns you. He uses that. It's like a card. He uses that to get whatever he wants from you. Like the other day, he took her last $7 by using that. And I'm like, and I know it's not true, because when I truthed her, it was a lie, but she still hangs on to it. So that was my question is, if you had that scenario, what would you say or do or be or whatever?
I would let people have the insanity that they're choosing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that actually is.
Because she's doing that. It's fun for her. Whatever it is, she's hanging on to it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
One of the greatest sources of ease, well, not sources, but one of the greatest ways to have more ease in your world is to actually allow people to be crazy. There's a lot of crazy people in the world. And when we use our energy to try and save people from their own choices, their relationships, now this can apply to other people in your life, certainly definitely this applies to your kids, right? Because your kids are going to make choices that you would not make for them, you know. And
Right.
when you can actually just allow people to have whatever they're going to have, create whatever they're going to create, holy crap, the level of ease that can show up in your world as a result is it's massive. You get to actually then have more creative energy to create. And then the thing is that as you create more in your life and in the world, then it just sort of becomes an invitation for people to choose that or not, you know, to be inspired by what you're creating or not. And it's sort of not relevant to you. I also made a video about this the other day. Or no, like video, radio show, something. It was a radio show. We were talking about not protecting your kids. And this is a, you know, very unpopular conversation, but it was a question that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, asked me a few years ago is, you know, are you willing to stop protecting your kids? And it was like, holy shit, you know, no. And I was protecting them from their dad. I was protecting them from really the choices that they made to have the father that they have, to choose me, to, you know, have parents that were divorced and all that. And I I started playing with that, and I started running the clearing, what energy, space, and consciousness can be in my body to stop protecting my kids for all eternity. And I ran it a lot for many, many months, and it changed so much for me. And it really gave me this space of ease around what my children choose. And certainly if one of my kids was gonna, you know, like run out in the middle of the street or something, I would stop them. You know, it doesn't mean I'm going to be dumb about it, right? But it's all these ways that we want to swoop in and like make things okay for people. Like my son Jaden, he has this very like chaotic space that I get that it actually really works for him. I mean, in some ways it works for him. In some ways he creates crap with it. Like he loses things a lot, things that are important to him, you know? It's been something where I, as somebody who can always kind of see what's coming down the pike, I'm like, all right, well, I know how this is going to go. You know, Jane's going to lose his money, or he's going to lose this thing, and he's going to be super upset. He's going to freak out, you know? And sometimes I will swoop in and change it because I don't want to deal with a freak out. I want to have, like, it's a choice, but it's a choice for ease for me. But there are moments where it's like, no, I actually need to let him lose the money or lose the whatever. If he'd like to change this, like sometimes, as we all know, you know, things have to get kind of blistery before we actually change them, you know? And so I got to be willing to let him have that as his life. And even though he's 8, you know, and the ease that can create in my world it's huge. Like it really does free up a lot of energy. So what would it be like if you didn't have to protect your kids from their own choices and the choices that they actually made as an infinite being to have the life that they have? What if you didn't actually have to protect them from that, and you could actually, again, use your energy to create more?
When my kids were little, they actually picked fights with other people and then came and told me, and I would go out there and I would protect them and I would get on to those people. And I didn't even know they were doing it. I don't know how many times they did it before my neighbor told me, he's my brother-in-law, and he told me what they were doing. I said, huh? You know, it never occurred to me that they would do it. I guess it was a fun game for them, you know?
That's a great way
I guess I don't know what it is for them, but
yeah, that's funny. Kids do that. Kids are
it is.
They're brilliant manipulators. So, and that's actually one of the things that, I mean, there's so many different places that I would like to go, and we'll go this summer with the mama sessions. We'll go, of course, where the group is asking to go. But that's a piece, that's a really fun thing to play with is, you know, how do your kids manipulate you? Now, what would it be like to out manipulate your kids? I love playing with that. There's so many fun things that have showed up in my world from that question. Playing with, your body, like, what is your body actually like? These children of yours, they came from your body. Even if you're a dad, like, they still came from your body. Like, what does your body know about them, about parenting, about what is going to create more, about ease? What does your body know about the pleasure of being in a body and being a mom or a dad or being on the planet? And what would it be like to use that more in your parenting? Like, what would it be like if parents and moms on this planet actually chose pleasure? What would it be like if you parented from pleasure? You're not allowed to do that in this reality. But what would it be like if you actually did? What would your kids, what inspiration and energy and space would that actually show them and invite them to, for what they could choose for themselves? That would be so much more ease. And so I just sort of like, it's fun doing this because I feel like we're like starting to tap into all these different places where we can go with this conversation. And just the technical piece of it, for those of you who don't even quite know what the actual setup of the summer program is, so we're going to do 3 group telecalls. We can do a Zoom hangout like this. That might be cool. Or a call, either way. I'm open. I think Zoom would be fun. So one in June, one in July, one in August. The first one is June 7th. So it's a week from today, I think. A week from today. Yeah. And those will have a topic for the call based on what I'm aware of in the group. So we probably will play with some pieces around body. I would imagine for the first one, go a little bit more into the pragmatics of, setting up your summer. And what's in, you guys, it's a group of 10, so it's actually going to be pretty intimate. So there will definitely be space for you to ask specific questions. So there's one call a month, and then there's one 30-minute private session with me a month, June, July, and August. And when you really get to, we'll get on the phone and you get to just ask all the questions that you have around what's up in your world and your life. And, we can be running clearings and playing with ideas. And sometimes my facilitation is, there's a lot of deep energetic clearing that happens. And there's also a lot of just pragmatic stuff that we'll play with. And 30-minute sessions actually change. I've been doing a lot of sessions lately, and oh my God, I love what we can create and change in 30 minutes. It's pretty amazing. And all the calls will be recorded. So that's what it is. It's $4.95 for the whole summer. If you'd like to just pay for the whole summer up front, there's also going to be a private Facebook group for us to be playing daily if you'd like to. It's up to you how you want to use it. And I'll probably put little tips and exercises in that group as well. And then if you would like to pay monthly, it's $195 a month for 3 months. So we just set up a recurring PayPal payment for $195 a month for 3 months. And those are the logistics of it. I am offering, and we do still have more time, so I will give you guys space to ask more questions, but just want to add this piece. For those of you it is going to be a small group. Like I said, it's just 10 people. I really just don't have time for more sessions than that. So just sort of had to look at that. So I will limit it at 10. And we do have some people already. So it's not going to be like a huge, if you want to do it, I would say jump in before we get full. But if you are like, yes, for sure, I want to do this, and you register by Friday at noon, so 48 hours from now, I'm going to give everybody I have these 9 energetic exercises that I've created that are really, really awesome, that just help you to get into that creative and generative space of like a really different reality with your body, with money, with creation. There's a night clearing loop. There's all kinds of cool stuff. So that's going to be, you get that as a gift for those of you who sign up before Friday. So that's a little piece there. And I'll send all of that in an email to you guys when we hang up here. So yeah. So what else? We have about 10-ish more minutes. What other questions do you guys have? Everybody's so quiet.
Well, I got one. It's Jewel again. Okay, I know I'm not going to get, no matter how old my children are, I'm never going to get rid of them. So what question can I ask?
Disease you can never get rid of.
I'm never going to get rid of, no matter how old they are.
Mm-hmm.
So what question can I ask to create more ease around that?
Around never getting rid of them?
Yeah.
How old are
you? Question. They're old. They're old kids.
They're
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
the youngest is 24.
Okay. Well, is it fun for you to hang out with them?
No, not really. Sometimes it is because I like being around my grandchildren. So sometimes it's fun for me to hang out with them. Sometimes it is. It's just some of their stuff that, because they still lie to me, and yeah, you already talked about the manipulation thing.
Yeah, well, I would ask.
Yeah, they still like and still try to manipulate me and all that stuff, and so I just get caught up in this crap, this
well, what if you
stuff, and that part's fun, huh?
So everywhere you've decided you have to clean up their messes for all eternity, will you just try and create that? Whew.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Oh, man. How much fun can you have out manipulating them? And what if you actually don't have to hang out with them? Like, I mean, family is just, they're just people, even if they are your kids. Like, they're on their own, right? They've got their own life.
Right.
You don't have to, take care of their bodies anymore. So what if you really got to create it on your own terms? If you just really want to be with your grandkids, then babysit, I mean, everybody loves a grandma who babysits.
Yeah, the grandkids are great. Yeah. I mean, they're wonderful. I mean, I don't have no problems with them at all.
Are you willing for your kids to use you?
Oh, no, I haven't been willing for my kids to use.
Cool. So everything that doesn't allow that.
To my advantage. My advantage, yeah.
Yeah. Right. We're good about only puck punch shirts with them. Because the thing about that is, like, I mean, maybe they would love to use you as a babysitter. There's just one idea, but sometimes when nobody's really willing to be quite honest about what's true for them, you're sort of functioning from the shoulds in this reality of, how you're supposed to be as the mom or whatever, or as a kid. Uh-huh. Then, you do all these things that people do these things that they don't really want to do. What if you could just be like, yeah, I'm totally here. I'm so willing to be used as a babysitter. And you just let me know when you want, like when you want a babysitter, let me know. And, because so often when we feel like people are taking advantage of us or using us or manipulating us, we sort of go into this like defensive stance of like wanting to make them wrong for it or somehow like deal with that. What if you could just be like, okay, cool, they use me. That's fine because I don't really want to hang out with them anyway. So,
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a big one when you said about uh, stopping cleaning up their messes for eternity. Oh my God! I think I got vows and oaths and camilities and philities all about that
Right.
crap.
So
Oh
everything
my
is
God!
we revoke, recant, rescind, reclaim, renounce, denounce, destroy, and create it.
Yes.
Right, I'll give out online puck shirts, but yeah, and you're certainly not the only one, honey. I mean, this is a big one. Like, we really, I mean, if we unravel this alone, in the next, little bit of time here, 3 months or whatever, really, really, like, what if your children's messes are like, what if you could allow them to be their messes? And what if you really don't have to clean them up? Whether it's, in your household and you can be like, this is your messy zone. You want to make a mess? This is where you make a mess, right? In their lives, with relationships, you know, and you don't actually have to, you are not at the effect of anybody else's choices and decisions, including your kids, and you could set it up in a way that works for you. What's required there? What would you have to create in order to have ease with that? I know for me, like, my kids have had a lot of injuries lately. They are super active, crazy boys. And they're always like breaking bones and twisting things. And it's just been kind of crazy. And I just really got that if I was willing to, if I just was okay with it, like, not like, oh, sure, go ahead and hurt yourself, but like, the more we resist anything, I guess that's really what it has been, is like, I've been noticing how much resistance I have to them, to all the hospital stuff. Like, it's really, for me, it's like, if you want to create pain in your body, that's your choice. I don't really want to go to the emergency room ever again. Personally, I've spent a lot of time there in the past few years. I know all kinds of things about orthopedics that I never really wanted to know. We've had so many broken bones. But it's like, okay, so for me, it's really, if I look at it like that and I just sort of take all the emotional charge out of it, it's like, all right, well, what doesn't work for me is like going to the hospital, dealing with doctors, and the money, like having to pay all these medical bills when I'd much rather use that money for something else. And but I realized that if I got into allowance of that, it's like, all right, well, what if I just created more money and, could let go of that, and what if I could, just be okay, like, be space. What change can I create when I'm sitting in the emergency room? Um, the thing about that is that a lot of us think that we would be inviting that into our lives more, by being an allowance of it. But actually what occurs is it dissipates the charge around it in your world. It dissipates the resistance and reaction to it. And then that stuff actually tends to not even show up as much. So I've really gotten, for me, that in order for me to have ease with this whole thing that they're doing, and there's a lot of other stuff that I can change around it too, that I've been looking at, and different things I can bring in. But with this piece particularly, it's like, in order for me to change it, the most accessible and fast change that I can create with it is to actually have allowance for the whole thing. And then there's a lot of new energies and possibilities that show up that were not available when I was in the space of resistance and reaction. Allowance of people's choices, your kids' choices, it's a huge one. It's a huge one. So, yeah. So
when my kids were little, my next door neighbor said, well, we like you and your husband. They really said this to me, but we hate your kids. They set fire to their shed. They set fire to, it's funny now, but it wasn't really funny then.
Well,
They
yeah.
set fire to their shed. They hit each other in the head with a hammer.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that
they did all kinds of things. I was really surprised when they made it to adulthood.
Yeah, I mean, are you willing to let them be assholes? Are you willing to let them kill themselves? Are you willing? I mean, and that sounds horrible, but it's like,
No.
not everybody is. Yeah, so everything that brings up, we destroy and uncreate it.
Yes.
As much as possible. Right, wrong, good, battle, name, puck, pud, shorts, boys and beyonds. and I'm not saying like after this conversation, you know, you'll just be like, I don't care about my kids. That's not what it is. But it's like when we destroy our own lives and ourselves and our creation, like our, what we can be and the ease and the joy that we can be in the world to save our kids from the destruction that they might actually be committed to. It isn't going to create more in the world. And that may seem like a really horrible point of view, and that's cool. But I just know that when you get into allowance of anything, it doesn't matter what it is. It might be your kid setting fire to a, you know, whatever, or, you know, hurting themselves or killing themselves. Like when you get into allowance of it, then there's a lot more change that's available to you. And that does not mean turning into a doormat and being like, yeah, my kid lights shit on fire, it's fine. That's not what that is. But also be a command in your world of like, not on my watch. Like, and so then you don't have lighters and matches and, you know, fire starting devices in your house. You know, you got to be practical about it. Right? And if they can't be left alone.
But I didn't want to be aware of what they were doing. That was the problem. That was the thing. I didn't want to be aware of what they're doing. Exactly. And that actually enabled them to even do more destructive, self-destructive things. They did all kinds of self-destructive things. If I had been willing just to be aware of what they were doing, that would have changed a lot, I believe. I think.
Exactly. And so you have to be willing to be the dominant entity in your household by being the most aware. And this is again where allowance is a huge piece, because if you, whatever you don't have allowance for, you will not have awareness of. Like if there's something that you're not tolerant of, that you don't want to see because you cannot handle seeing it, then you will cut off your awareness of that. And that thing, whatever it is, will absolutely rule your life. So getting into allowance is one of the most pragmatic choices that you can make, because it actually increases your awareness dynamically. And then when you have more awareness, it's not always the most comfortable thing. But when you have more awareness, you have so much more available to you. There is so much more ease. You have awareness of what's required. You have awareness of how you can change things. You have awareness of what you need to be to create a different reality, to like stop your kids from being insane or lighting things on fire. But if you don't have allowance of the behavior that's actually occurring, and then you will actually be at the effect of it. Yeah, that's a big conversation, and yet like huge piece with having more freedom in parenting. So we're at the end of our time. And wow, it's really cool to see how many different little pieces we touched on here today. And you know, there's just where else can you go as a mom, as a parent? Like how much more ease can you create? What else can you be aware of? What other pragmatic choices can you make in your life? And how else can you set up your life in such a way that it really, really works for you, and for your kids? Like, and really, like the bottom line here is that all of this actually is a contribution to your children and your family. Because if you're miserable, your family will be miserable. And then your kids will grow up looking at you and going, well, apparently that's how you're supposed to be, is miserable. And you know, who wants that for their children? So are you willing to actually be a different possibility? So we will send out the recording. If you'd like to listen again, we'll send it audio and video. It'll be on YouTube. And if you'd like to come and play with us for the summer, it would be so much fun to have you. We will post the links for all of that in the Facebook event, and it'll be in the email as well. And like I said, if you want to jump in the next 48 hours, there's a whole bunch of yumminess coming your way, energetic exercises. And what else can we create and be in the world to create a totally, totally different possibility with parenting and beyond? So thanks everybody, and have a really, really gorgeous rest of your day or night, wherever you are in the world. And we'll talk soon. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.